crying in baseball. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I'm continuing my masculine feminine energies film breakdown series with the classic A League of Their Own. The weather's getting warmer and I thought it would be fun to do a breakdown of just a fun summer film. If you're not familiar with what I mean by masculine and feminine energies, I talk about this in most of my videos, but a brief summary. Masculine and feminine energies are energies that live within all of us. We all contain both energies. We all have a core energy that's the one that we're most ourselves in. That energy may link up with our gender or it may not. It very often does. Each of these energies has archetypes and we all possess all of the archetypes. We can tap into different ones at different points in our life, different points in the day, and we're usually more comfortable in certain archetypes than in others. We can also be in wounded or healed versions of either of these energies or these archetypes. And I have a lot of videos on my channel talking about these energies as well as the different archetypes. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use film clips in this video. It's kind of hit or miss when I can. Hit or miss. 3 strikes, you're out. Let's not even joke about YouTube strikes. But I always do little mini film clip breakdowns on my TikTok, so if you want to follow me there and check those out, the link is in the description box below. So A League of Their Own is a little bit different than some of the other breakdowns because it doesn't really have romantic relationships at the forefront. There's a little bit of that I'll talk about later, but for the most part, this is more about individual characters and about the general idea of feminine energy. This film is from 1992, but it was actually set in World War II times when the men went off to war and they decided to create a women's baseball league to keep baseball going while the men were off at war. So there's a big concern when this league starts that women are going to become too manly, that women doing all of this, the men's work that men can't do because they're off at war and playing baseball, things like that, are going to make women too manly, and that men are not going to be coming home to feminine women. And a really big message that I hope comes across in all of my videos is that being feminine doesn't mean one specific thing or that you have to fit into a specific box or a specific mold. Being feminine is an energy, and it has so many different flavors and so many different archetypes. I have a lot of videos about the feminine archetypes. You can be feminine and play a sport. You can be feminine and, you know, you could be a blonde law student at Harvard. You can be feminine and be a writer who moves to Tuscany. You can be feminine and be so many different things. It's an energy that's within you. And there are actually a lot of women who look very girly who actually aren't embodying their feminine energy. I think it's a really interesting concept in the movie that people assume that because these women are going to do things that are traditionally male, that they're automatically going to become men or become masculine. And I think it's actually a pretty good indication that a lot of the women in this movie, they don't. They retain their femininity. They still stay feminine. Sometimes they shift into a more masculine energy because competition is very masculine. So sports are an interesting thing, and I think this might be a little controversial, but I'm gonna go there. When it comes to sports, there's the competition aspect, which is very masculine. When you're competing with somebody, you're in your masculine energy. That goes for men or for women. Feminine energy is not competitive with other women. In fact, the more that you are in the femininity space, the more you learn about feminine energy, the more you connect with people who are really tapping into their feminine energy, the less competition you find. Now, it's really ingrained in most women to be very competitive, but in reality, the more that women step into their feminine energy, the less they see other women as competition, and the more they see other women for their individual feminine beauty. It's something that I found in the feminine energy space that I find very freeing, is to see so many women for their beauty and not seeing them as a competition. That competitiveness comes from masculine energy. Very often in women today, it's coming from a wounded masculine energy. I believe that's where like the whole like mean girls concept comes from. Case in point, if you look at men and when men are competing with each other, like even in friendships and stuff, it's more natural. It's more natural for like two male friends to be competing with each other because it's ingrained in them. When women are put in positions where they have to compete with other women, it doesn't usually bring out the best in them. But that very often can bring out the best in men when they have to compete with each other. I could dig into this really deep and say that I believe that the fact that we've set women up to be very competitive with each other has been a way to keep women divided and weak. I'm not saying that men do that, but I'm saying that I believe society has been doing that because I think men and women have been very manipulated by the way society has been setting us up to be weaker and not be at our best. But men are just better at being competitive in friendships with other men, which is why sports tends to be a much more natural fit for masculine men. It tends to bring out the masculinity in them when it comes to the competition. Whereas the competitiveness of sports doesn't bring out the feminine in a woman. It can bring out a good masculine energy in a woman in certain circumstances, but that competitiveness is not natural to a feminine woman. Here's where I'm going to say something that might be controversial. I've had people get pretty upset with me when I've said this before, but I stand by this statement. Professional sports is entertainment. It's a show. Like, you're putting on a show. Yes, there's skill. Yes, it is a competition. It's watching a competition. I believe I've seen this described before in sort of the masculine energy space of like sports is kind of like simulated war, and I agree with that. However, it's also entertainment. I live in New England, so we're like Red Sox Nation and everything. So I have a lot of people that argue with me because they take their sports very seriously. But it's entertainment. Like, people go to watch sports for the entertainment. Being seen and putting on a show, putting on a performance, and being looked at, being seen, being witnessed is very feminine energy. And part of this women's league is they actually are putting on a show. It's a performance. They're showing their skills. I mean, there's a lot of hesitation about the uniforms that they're wearing because they think it shows too much, but it's showing off. It's, you know, doing little stunts and being playful, and they're putting on a show. And that being seen and being witnessed and putting on that performance, that's very feminine energy. So while yes, the competition aspect of sports is very masculine, the showmanship aspect, the being seen, being witnessed, that being seen aspect of it, the entertainment aspect of it is very much feminine energy. I mean, look, men or women who play sports can exhibit both. And ideally, you would want someone who exhibits a healthy version of both, because both men and women can have a healthy version of masculine energy and a healthy version of feminine energy, and they can have unhealthy versions of either one. So I would make the argument that just because these women are playing sports, or because women play sports, or because women do things that are traditionally masculine, most things in our life take skills that are masculine and take skills that are feminine. And so just because women decide to, say, play baseball, which is something that is more traditionally a man's role, so to speak, does not mean that it's automatically going to make her into a masculine or manly woman. That's only going to happen if she decides she wants to be. And it's interesting with Marla because she, it pains me the way that they talk about how unattractive she is. And, you know, they're trying to make her look less attractive. They make her look more awkward, but I'm just like, oh my God, it breaks my heart that she's such a good baseball player, and they actually almost aren't going to recruit her, even though her father basically has said that if she was a boy, she would have been playing for the Yankees. She was that good. But they weren't gonna pick her because she wasn't traditionally attractive, and they wanted attractive women to be playing this sport because they wanted something for people to look at, right? And it's interesting how her father was like, look, she didn't have a mother. I raised her like a boy. That's why she doesn't know how to be girly. But it's interesting because she is so feminine. I mean, she's an amazing athlete. I mean, that's part of the thing, and she was raised by her father, but she's very emotional. She's very connected to her father. She almost doesn't want to leave to go play in the league because she doesn't want to leave her father, because she's prioritizing the relationship first. She actually meets a man and goes off and gets married and gives up baseball to be with her husband. The feminine will always put love and connection first, whereas the masculine will always put his passion and purpose first. Doesn't mean that the feminine can't have a passion and purpose. They absolutely can. Doesn't mean that the masculine won't have love and connection and put that as a high priority. The feminine will always put love and connection first in her life. That's just, it's natural. And I think I see it a lot now where we shame women for doing that. Like, oh, she put this aside to have a family or to be with her partner and this and that. And it's like, it's unhealthy if she's doing that for the wrong partner, obviously. But if a feminine woman is choosing to be with her partner, to follow her partner, maybe if he has to travel or leave and she puts her life on hold for him, that's actually a really deep natural desire for the feminine. Now, is that the right choice for every woman? No, absolutely not. Does it make you not feminine if you decide that that's not the path that you want to go on? No, absolutely not. But that deep desire to drop everything to be there for your loved ones, it's very natural when you're a feminine core being. So I think it's interesting how while Marla is considered the most tomboyish because she's not as attractive, so to speak, as some of the other women, she really is so feminine. She's so willing to put love first, even though she's really great at baseball and that's something that she wants to do and she's good at. she really wants love, she wants connection. And I think that it's a sign that you don't necessarily have to look like a girly girl in order to really be a feminine being at your core. And you can also be really great at sports, or really great at athleticism, or really great at something that is traditionally masculine, but you can still have a very feminine core. I think it's really interesting that there's like so many different personalities of all of these women, and you know, we don't really get to dig too deeply into each of these characters in the film, but there's so many different personalities that play in this league of these different women. I think it's really interesting. There's a few things I want to point out before I get a deep dive into the main characters. One thing is the scene where one of the women can't read. And it's interesting because she is absolutely like panicked because she can't read, and the manager is kind of yelling at her, like telling her if she doesn't see her name, she has to leave, and she doesn't want to admit that she can't read. And the fact that there's another woman who jumps up and is like, let me help you, and like helps her, that kind of like willing to jump up and help out somebody else in that community, that connection, that's so feminine. That like being there for somebody else, and that caring for and that loving, nurturing energy is so feminine. And I think it's a sign that these women are all cheering each other on. I mean, yes, they're competing against each other, but they're still all seeing each other as women, and they're supporting each other. And I think that's a sign that these women are just naturally feminine. It doesn't necessarily mean because they're doing something like play sports that they don't naturally have that sort of loving, nurturing essence about them. You also see too, like when they send them to charm school, you know, all of these different women, they just come from different backgrounds, and they have different personalities, and they have different archetypes at their forefront. If you look at someone like May, who's played by Madonna, she's feminine, but she's a very sultry feminine. It doesn't necessarily mean because they're doing something like play sports that they don't naturally have that sort of loving, nurturing essence about them. You also see too, like when they send them to charm school, you know, all of these different women, they just come from different backgrounds, and they have different personalities, and they have different archetypes at the forefront. If you look at someone like May, who's played by Madonna, she's feminine, but she's a very sultriness about her. Like she's very much kind of that like lover energy, and that's her way of being feminine. That's her way of expressing herself. It's not the prim proper way that they're trying to get these women to be, you know, or the nurturing mother. But you know, even then, she is helping the woman who's literate. She's helping her learn to read. So even though she doesn't really lead with her mother energy, she also has a little bit, and she's kind of getting her to read kind of a dirty book. So like that lover energy is coming out, but she's sitting there and helping her read. So it goes to show that you can lead with a certain archetype and a certain energy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only one that you possess. And as women, if we can tap into all the different aspects of our feminine energy, we're just more well-rounded women in general. It's good for us to really tap into all the different aspects to our personalities and to our feminine energy. And May's best friend Doris, who's played by Rosie O'Donnell, has a really great scene where they're on the tour bus, and she's showing everybody a picture of her boyfriend, and she's like, oh, he's not attractive, but you know, he treats me badly and everything. And people are like, why are you with him? And it's like, well, it's really hard to find a man who can accept the fact that I play ball. And I think and then she kind of has this moment of this epiphany, and she like rips up his picture and throws it out the window. And it's kind of one of those things where the feminine so wants to be seen and accepted. We think of the feminine as wanting the superficial attention, and many women will settle for superficial attention. It's why a lot of women post scantily clad photos on Instagram. I'm not judging, I've done it before. We view the feminine's desire to be seen as the superficial need for attention, which it is on a surface level. But it's really much deeper than that. In fact, for most women, they could get all, and I'm speaking from experience here, you can get all the attention that you want, showing your body or showing off some kind of surface aspect of yourself or superficial thing, even a more intellectual thing or something like that. But if you're not fully seen and witnessed for who you truly are, you're always gonna feel like there's something lacking. So you could have, say, a man who sees you as the sexiest woman in the world, or a lot of men who are paying attention to you because you look sexy, or you dress sexy, or you post, you know, sexy photos and things like that. There's always gonna be something missing. If you get the right guy, or you get enough attention, you might be able to distract yourself with it, but there's gonna be something missing. Even if, say, you are showing off because you are so intelligent, or you are so skilled in a certain area, or you're showing off, maybe it's something a little bit deeper than just the surface, but it's still showing off something that is just it's a skill, or it's a knowledge in some area or some kind of accomplishment, and you're just leaning on that as using that to show off. That might be a little bit deeper than just being seen for your appearance, but at the end of the day, you're always gonna feel like you want more of that, because the feminine always yearns for more, and they yearn to be seen and fully witnessed and accepted for who they truly are. To just let themselves be seen, and not just their surface nakedness, but like their soul, their depth. The feminine wants to be seen and witnessed from their depth. And I think so many women, especially today, they settle for either surface attention, or they settle for a man that gives them partial attention, but they don't actually ever allow themselves to be fully seen, and they don't choose a partner who they feel safe to be fully seen with, and who really fully accepts them for who they truly are. And it's kind of a throwaway scene in this movie, but I really do think that's significant. It's kind of that moment where she's like, you know what? I deserve better than this. And it's like owning your worth, owning that part of yourself that's like, no, I deserve someone who actually loves me, for all of who I am as a person. This movie really does follow Dottie and Kit and their journey from being milkmaids in Oregon to traveling to the big leagues and being the stars of women's baseball. Kit is the little sister, and Kit has a major chip on her shoulder. She's actually in, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say wounded masculine, but it's pretty wounded masculine. She's in her ego a lot. She feels like she needs to prove herself. She never feels like she's good enough for her sister, so she acts out, she flips out. She's very angry and aggressive a lot of the time. She gets into fights because she can't handle her ego being bruised. It is coming from feeling like she's in her sister's shadow. She's operating from ego, and she's not actually owning her own skills and her own worth. She's just constantly trying to prove herself, to prove that she's just as good or better than her sister. It wears on her, you know, this anger that she has throughout the movie. It's wearing on her, and it really deteriorates the relationship she has with her sister, and her sister loves her so much. Kit can't fully accept that, because she's put up this wall of trying to compete with her sister, as opposed to really realizing how much her sister really does love her and wants her to be great. She just keeps accusing her sister of trying to keep her down, when in reality, her sister really does want her to be great. Dottie really is the star of the movie. She's played by Geena Davis, and she is gorgeous in this movie. I mean, as rough and tumble as she is playing baseball, she still manages to stay stunning. Like, I imagine that being in her shadow, like being her younger sister or being in her shadow in any way, would probably get to anybody, really. But the thing is, Dottie is, she's very balanced. I think she's very feminine at her core. There's a lot of signs that she's a feminine being at her core, but she has a very healthy connection to her masculine energy. And I think this is a really great example of when a woman can tap into a healthy version of her masculine energy, but she still remains a feminine core being. For one thing, Dottie has a very strong mother energy. I would say that's actually probably her strongest archetype. She is so mothering to everybody, but not mothering in the modern sense of the word, of this like controlling, micromanaging type of person. She's mothering in that she will do anything to protect her loved ones. She will do anything to care for and nurture her loved ones. When her and Kit are trying to catch the train, and you know, she's running ahead because she's faster, she's taller, and she's throwing both of her luggage on the train, and then she makes sure that Kit makes it on the train first before she jumps on the train. Being a mother is a sacrifice. It's a beautiful sacrifice, but it's still a sacrifice. As a woman, you are sacrificing, when we're talking about like an actual child, like your actual baby, I mean, you're sacrificing your body for the time it takes to grow the baby, and then you're sacrificing feeding the baby, very often from your own body. It's a sacrifice. Dottie is such a great example of that. Even though at this point in the film she doesn't have an actual child herself, she is raising Kit as if she is her own. She's basically always sacrificing for her. She's always putting Kit's needs first above her own, and not actually even admitting sometimes what her own needs and desires are. And she does this with other people. She's always the one who steps in and will sacrifice herself to help out somebody else. It's not from a wounded place. It's not from a place of because she wants them to like her. It's from a genuine loving place of really wanting other people to feel good, to feel nurtured. She doesn't do it from a place where she's trying to get something in return other than just the happiness of knowing that somebody else is happy. She also can tap into her masculine energy whenever she needs to. And one of the reasons why I believe it's a healthy version of her masculine energy is because she never forces it on anybody. She steps into her masculine energy, which is her direction, which is her leadership, which is her taking charge, taking control, creating structure. She taps into all of those things when it's necessary because nobody else is stepping up to the plate, or somebody is stepping up to the plate, literally stepping up to the plate. I just got that. Yeah, stepping up to the plate, not in a supportive way. So she steps in when it's needed. She's like, I'll take charge when it's needed, but she's not in that forceful, like, I need to take control because she needs to be in control or because she can't trust anybody else. It's just when other people aren't stepping up to the plate and taking charge, she takes charge. She creates the structure. She literally creates the lineup when it starts because everybody else is in chaos. You know, when feminine energy is in chaos, the masculine creates the structure. And that's what Dottie does in this film, is when the feminine is in chaos, like when they don't have a lineup to start the first game. It's all these women are just in chaos, and what are we gonna do, and how are we gonna handle this, and why I wanna do this, I wanna do this, I wanna do this. And Dottie steps in and she's like, hey, here's the structure. Here's the lineup, and this is how we're gonna do things. She's not forcing that on anybody. Now, she does get into a competition at one point with Jimmy, and we'll get into Jimmy in a minute, but you know, Jimmy is kind of not really managing the team, and so Dottie's stepping up and she's managing the team, and she's giving the signals and everything, and then Jimmy gets sort of in this, well, no, I'm the one who does this, and starts trying to prove himself. So Dottie basically steps up and challenges him, like, I'm not backing down. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because she knows what's right. And it's like, well, he hasn't proven himself yet. He hasn't shown that he's a reliable manager. So she's gonna keep doing it. She's not trying to tear him down, but she's like, all right, if you think you can handle it and do better than me, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. If you wanna step up and try to do better, then great, but I'm not gonna stop until I know that you've actually stepped up to where the level that you need to be, where I can trust you to let you take control, which is actually a very smart move on the feminine, because she's not trying to make him feel bad about himself. She's like, hey, I'm here at this level. You either meet me here or surpass me, or else I'm not gonna back down and trust you until you can show me that you've stepped up. Now, in a romantic relationship, that can sometimes cause friction. Not saying it's not applicable in a romantic relationship, but in the workforce or in a job situation, that's actually really smart. Dottie also has a great deal of focus, and she's also lives in her truth. It's a great example of the times that she doesn't coddle people. She doesn't coddle Kit. She supports Kit. She wants Kit to be her best, but she doesn't coddle her. There's a time when Jimmy's gonna take Kit out of the game, and Kit keeps saying she wants to stay, and then they look at Dottie, and Dottie's like, no, she's done. She can't play anymore. Kit's mad, and Dottie knew that Kit was going to be mad at that, but Dottie lived in her truth. She said her truth, and that was the right answer, and that's what she was supposed to do. And she tells Kit what to do from a truthful place. She doesn't just tell her what she wants to hear. Kit doesn't like that, but that's a very common dynamic, and that's a common dynamic when you're talking about masculine and feminine energies in general. You see it often in romantic relationships, but in any relationship, when you're in your masculine, you're living your truth. You're living your truth, and you're speaking your truth from a genuine, honest place. Very often, a person in their feminine energy or in their emotions or in their ego is not going to like it. They're going to respect it in the long run because it's the truth. And truth is always more respectable than a lie or just telling somebody what they want to hear. And Dottie knows this. Even though she knows it hurts her, and again, this is where the mother sacrificing comes from, even though she knows it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt Kit and possibly hurt their relationship, she also knows that the truth is in Kit's best interest. The truth is in everybody's best interests, and that's why she always sticks to her truth. So Dottie has a very good connection to her masculine energy. She's not in her ego. She's not trying to prove herself. She just is, which is probably one of the reasons why she excels so much at, and she's considered the best player in the league, because she has that grounded, focused, masculine presence that she can have for a game, because it's a great asset to have in, well, pretty much when you're doing anything and trying to accomplish anything. The cue that Dottie is actually a feminine chord being is that as much as Dottie loves baseball, as much as she's great at playing baseball, her husband having a family that's always more important to her. Kit is more important to her. Her sister, her family, her love, her connections are more important to her than baseball, than accomplishments, than a purpose. Her love and connection is her true purpose. It is her true love. And oh my God, the scene where, which I'll get into the scene in a little bit more detail when we talk about Jimmy, but the scene after one of the women finds out that her husband has been killed in combat, and Dottie thinks that it's going to be her husband and then finds out that it's not. And the moment that you see her in her hotel room and she is just crying, she's letting out all those emotions because she's worried about her husband being overseas. She's worried about her husband being away at war. She releases those emotions because, I mean, she's had fights with Kit. She's had all this stuff going on, and she's always had to be the strong, stable one. And she finally releases emotions when she's alone. And then when she actually sees her husband, that's the moment when Bob walks in, which is such a beautiful scene. Oh my God. He walks in and he's safe. He's been injured at war, but he's safe and he's there. And you can see Dottie just soften into him. That release of just being with him and their connection together is just so, he's now holding the structure. She doesn't have to hold the structure anymore. She gets to relax and surrender to him because he's there and he now has the structure. She doesn't have to be the strong and control one. She's great at being strong and in control, but she finally gets this opportunity to relax with him because she knows his strength, because she knows how strong he is. And she loves him so much and wants a family with him so much that she's willing to just walk away from baseball completely. And she's willing to leave just before the final game and not even complete the season because she wants to be with her husband so badly because he is her top priority. Because for the feminine, that's always going to be that way. And the thing that I love so much, which is just such a subtle thing in the film, it's kind of implied that Dottie's husband doesn't really know how good she is at baseball, and he's away at war and he comes back, he's a war hero now, and she ends up deciding to come back and play the final game. And she's having this great game, and then you see Bob in the audience, and Bob's like, that's my wife, like he's cheering her on. And I think that's so beautiful when you see a very masculine man. He's a war hero, he's very strong, he's just, you know, he's just a really stable guy. Dottie has said he was a manager at the milk farm, I think, or the dairy farm that they were working at. He was so smart, he's a smart guy. Like, she respects him so much because he's got all these amazing qualities and he's a strong war hero. And because he's so strong, Dottie's strength doesn't intimidate him. He can be so proud of her and her accomplishments and what she's done because it doesn't take away anything from him and what he's accomplished. He's so strong and rooted and grounded in who he is and his masculinity and his masculine strength that seeing his wife have this amazing achievement and being so good at something, it doesn't take anything away from him. It makes him feel great. It makes him feel like, hey, look at what I've got. And I think that's a sign of a really secure, stable masculine, is when he can see his feminine partner achieving things or accomplishing things, but also know how much she is devoted to him and dedicated to him, and that her heart is with him, and he can actually cheer her on and be proud of her and not see her accomplishments as a competition with him, because Dottie doesn't view them that way at all, and I think it's really beautiful that he doesn't view it that way either. Now we get into Jimmy, played by Tom Hanks. Okay, so Jimmy is like an ex-baseball player who had to retire because he drank too much, got injured, and kind of irresponsible, couldn't keep a job. Jimmy is a prime example of, I would say, a wounded feminine male, in that, I mean, really anytime you see addiction problems, I think you're getting into like wounded feminine energy, because you're getting into self-harm. I think this is a very common thing that happens, and I've mentioned this in a few other videos, that happens with men who, a lot of times athletes who accomplish so much. They're seen as masculine because they do things like they compete in sports. They have a very masculine look, or they're achieving in a masculine field. They've never really been asked to fully step into their mature adult masculine energy. They stay kids, and we've seen this in my Cat in a Hot Tin Roof breakdown, where they kind of are like, you know, just a bunch of grown kids playing a kid's game. And you see a lot of these pro athletes who, they get a lot of accomplishments and achievements at such a young age. Nothing else is ever expected of them. Everything else gets handed to them, so they kind of live this kind of cushy lifestyle, and they never actually get to live in the discomfort of life. So they never really fully grow into a mature, healthy, masculine energy. And that's where I think you get a lot of these guys who, I mean, again, Jimmy has like zero respect for feminine energy or for women. Like he says, women are to sleep with after the game. Women are not for playing baseball. You have a healthy masculine energy. It appreciates a healthy feminine energy. It's that polarity that realizes how important they both are. Healthy feminine energy has a huge respect for healthy masculine energy, and healthy masculine energy has a huge respect for healthy feminine energy. And they celebrate their differences, and they don't see the other one as being less than. And that's where you get Jimmy's obviously he's bad relationships with women. He can't stop drinking, so there's a lot of self-harm. Like he said, he lost the last 5 years of his baseball career to drinking and alcohol, and he wishes he could have them back. It's that self-destructive behavior that you're seeing because he hasn't fully stepped into the healthiest version of his masculine energy. He's got a lot of feminine wounding going on within him. He can't stay focused. He doesn't want to create structure. He gets asked to manage a team, and in the beginning, he's just sort of like, well, I'm just going to show up here. I'm going to walk out. I'm going to wave. I'm going to let everyone see me. I'm going to kind of be a star. And then it's like, I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. And it's actually not until Dottie steps in and essentially starts managing the team that Jimmy's ego then gets bruised, and he decides that he needs to step up and start managing. And as much as I get a lot of criticism for saying this, masculine energy thrives when challenged. I have a lot of men who argue with that statement, but it's the truth. The masculine thrives when challenged. So in this situation, Jimmy's not actually willing to step up and actually embody his masculine leadership until he sees someone else, a woman, doing it better than him. And that's what inspires him to then step up and be like, okay, now I'm going to take charge, because he saw, I mean, it was his ego that was that desire to do that. He started to want to step into his masculine leadership because he was seeing a woman doing it so much better than him, and that challenged him to want to step up. It's also a few times, it's kind of subtle, but there's a few times that you see Jimmy kind of like make fun of the concept of religion or going to confession or this and that. But he really does have sort of this sort of essence of a higher power, which is very essential to the masculine, and in whatever form it is that you connect to. It's not necessarily about being a part of a certain organized religion or something, but having a connection to a higher power is really important for the masculine because it's helps keep his ego a little bit in check. There's a couple significant scenes that Jimmy is a part of. For one, there's the scene, it breaks my heart every time. I literally cry every time I see it. It's the scene where the telegram shows up and they're going to tell one of the women that their husband has died in war. And, you know, the guy with the telegram kind of like says that that's why he's there, but then he can't find the name on the telegram and then this and that. And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to leave and come back. And Jimmy steps into protector mode in that moment. Like he literally snaps into, like he basically grabs it from the telegram guy. He's like, no, I'm not gonna have these women sitting around waiting to see which one of them has lost their husband. Like he takes charge, he takes control, and then he goes up and tells the woman who has lost her husband that her husband has died. And oh my God, I cry every time I see that scene. It's so emotional. And you notice that he tells her and he holds her. He stands there and he's really stepped into his masculine energy at that point. He's the strong protector. He's the grounded one, and you notice all of the women like consoling her, and it's sort of that feminine emotion. The women are releasing emotion. They're showing that emotion. That's very feminine energy. It's that warmth, that nurturing that all comes from the feminine, and to support her. And Jimmy really does step into his masculine in that moment of being very grounded and being the protector. There's the other moment that is the iconic scene in the movie where Jimmy basically starts yelling at one of the women and she starts crying, and he's just like, there's no crying in baseball. And I mean, it's a funny scene, but I think it's a really strong indication of, this might be controversial, but a big part of leadership is not necessarily leading your way, but it's knowing the personalities, the energies behind the people that you're leading, and leading them in a way that's going to get you the end result that you want. So Jimmy is used to playing on a team, having male managers and managing a male team, where tough love and being angry and being aggressive is acceptable and may get the job done in a lot of cases, because the masculine can often respond to, especially from other men, that push, that aggression, that challenge. Feminine doesn't respond well that way. The feminine usually needs a softer touch. She needs more love and compassion. Criticizing a feminine being and tearing her down or using a tough love tactic on a feminine being is probably not going to get you the result that you want. She's probably going to cry, or she's going to get angry, or she's going to be in an emotion, and her emotions are going to take over, and that's not necessarily going to get you the end result that you want. I mean, unless the end result you want is for her to cry or get angry or be in her emotions. If you want a feminine being to accomplish something, that tough love and that aggression is not going to, it's not going to be ideal. It's probably not going to get you the result you want. It could potentially get her in her masculine energy, and if she has a healthy connection to her masculine energy, it might get a decent result, but it's probably not going to do that. In that particular situation, Jimmy was taking on a masculine leadership role by giving directions, giving orders in a very aggressive manner, because he's seen that work with masculine men, with masculine core beings. Because Jimmy is masculine at his core, he's just living in a lot of feminine wounding. So he was operating as a masculine leader. Not the healthiest masculine leader, I would say, but he was operating from that space, talking to someone as if they were another masculine being. But because he was talking to a feminine core being, she just got in her emotions. She couldn't handle it. Like, she was too sensitive. And because the feminine is very sensitive, it's not actually a weakness. That feminine vulnerability is a huge strength. It's a huge power that women have, and we don't really appreciate enough. But that's why tough love is probably not going to work with a feminine being, because again, it's just going to put her in her emotions, and that's not going to be the ideal way to get the result that you want from a feminine being. So I think that's important to note in a relationship, but also I think, I mean, I know people get really weird about the workspace and like, well, if women are going to be in a certain role, then they should deal with things the way that men deal with them. And I know that's a very common way of thinking. However, if you're going to have people who are masculine at their core and people who are feminine at their core working together, or, you know, just trying to accomplish anything in life, as a leader, it's really important to note how the people you're leading respond best to critique, criticism, direction, things like that. And it's like, do you want them to be led the way that you want to lead them, or do you want them to be led in the best way that's going to get the end result? And I'm not saying either one of those answers is right or wrong, but I think it's something to note. And there's a scene where you really see Jimmy at his best, at his most masculine, and when he's really tapped into his masculine energy the most. And that's when Dottie has decided to leave, to just be with her husband. She's gonna quit. She's gonna, you know, to leave baseball and just be with her husband. And Jimmy basically tries to convince her to stay, because he knows what he's given up, what he's sacrificed, and how much he wishes he had it back. And he doesn't want Dottie to feel like she is given up at the last minute. And Dottie says that it's too hard. And Jimmy has a line. This could be the masculine mantra. Like, I feel like this line represents masculine energy so perfectly. You know, Dottie says it's got too hard, and Jimmy says it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. And that is so, it's the mantra of the masculine. Like, the masculine thrives when challenged. It thrives when it has a problem to solve, when it has something to accomplish, something to conquer. And the masculine needs that purpose. And if you notice that as Jimmy has stepped into his purpose, has stepped into this, and he stepped into it because Dottie essentially really inspired him to step up. She stepped up, and he was like, I guess I gotta step up too. It was him being challenged that actually woke him up to what his passions were, what he really wanted, having a purpose in life, having a goal to achieve. And actually, when he did that, he really got himself together. He stepped into the fullness of his masculine in doing this and accomplishing this and having a focus, having a purpose. The masculine needs a challenge. It needs to, you know, something to conquer. And I think that's it's such a great moment in that movie when you see Jimmy like, okay, you know what, I mean, again, it's a movie, so obviously, you know, I'm sure he didn't leave all of his wounding and trauma and everything behind. It's a movie, but like, that's when you see the glimpse of like his masculine core really coming through. So this was a fun movie. The weather's getting warmer here, and I just thought doing kind of a fun summer movie as a breakdown would be really fun. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on any of these characters. There are a lot of other characters in this that were sort of side characters here and there, and I really just wanted to focus mainly on Dottie and Jimmy, and then the kind of the concept of feminine energy in general. Highly suggest after you watch this video that you actually watch this film, see if you can pick up on some of the things that I talked about in the video. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you would like to connect to your feminine energy, I have an online course called Feminine Radiance. Details are in the description box below, along with links to all my social media channels. If you have any thoughts on this movie or any requests of movies you would like me to break down, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I love to hear from you and I love your suggestions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.